Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dr. Inia Adesanya show. And, here is where I share resources for SMEs to thrive. So we're going to share something else that's very interesting. I bring people on board, either professionals or people who actually have questions. And so very excited to be here. Again, this is the Dr. Inia Adesanya show. I'm very grateful to those that have subscribed, that have watched and have commented, and it's beautiful. It's been a very, although not long journey, but we're getting there, not up to 1 year yet, but it's exciting. So again, very excited to be here this afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are, but very excited to be here. All right. And I want to just continue with what I said, or just in the in the same arena that I was last week. I mentioned how you can get funding for your business within this time, or at this time where there's high interest rates, right? So I actually singled out one. I mentioned a lot of avenues. Of course, that list is not exhaustive, but I actually singled out one area that I said I will expand on this week, and that is I believe it's the State Small Business Credit Initiative. Okay, so State Small Business Credit Initiative. Now, when we talk about that, we're wondering what is that, right? What is that? Now, you hear that it's state. Yes, it's state, but the federal government actually funds it. And so usually states work with the federal government, right? And it's a very beautiful way to get funding as a small business. Now, if you're not aware of this program, it's very important for you to ask if your state has this program, all right? So ask if your state has this program. So what does it do? It enables small businesses really to obtain, financing, right? The loan actually gives lenders some kind of security, because the state actually has a guarantee, a percentage that it guarantees of that entire loan. So, the small business goes to ask for this loan. And when they ask for this loan, lenders actually, should I say small businesses have a better opportunity, right, to get these loans, because it's sort of guaranteed by the state. And actually the federal government actually is one that works with the state. So we just wanted to make sure we understand that. And so, but I'm not going to go through the modalities of state and federal working together. That's not your problem, right? Your issue is how do you get funding? So this avenue is available to SMEs, right? So who are those that even qualify? What kind of companies qualify? Now, usually, right, there's a criteria. There are criteria that are set in place, but those criteria really fall within the SMEs, the threshold of the number of employees, and so those thresholds really fall within SMEs, right? So yes, the state will say certain companies qualify, all right? So usually if you're an SME, you usually would qualify. Usually, of course, this is just a general information. As I always say, this is general information. So you have to really see if you do qualify. But just wanted to first of all say that it's out there. This is out there for companies that are struggling and say, you know what, funding is difficult for me, right? So this is another avenue. Again, I mentioned it last week, but I wanted to expand on this specific area. Okay, so then another question you might ask is, okay, yes, this is available, right? And I told you about the criteria. You might ask, okay, how much can I get? How much can I get? Now, usually the amount is with about 5 million. It can be up to 20, but it has to be less than 20. But usually it's within 5 million that is allowed for that kind of loan. Of course, it's not that when you walk into the door, you say, I want 5 million, 120 million. Of course, criteria is a loan. So I'm sure the lender would go around or go about the normal process of, okay, do you qualify? How much can you afford? All right. So it's going to be really like a normal loan. But the benefit of this is because the state government guarantees a portion of that loan. So lenders are a little bit more comfortable lending that amount out. Okay. So the next question you might ask is, okay, this amount that is given to us or being released, if you do get the loan, what can I use it for? Okay. Of course, why do you want a business loan? For business, right? You want a business loan to make sure that you're using it for business. So it's really to fund your business. Now, of course, there'll be criteria, that people can check, or the lenders will check. What are you funding? Are you funding the business? Are you not funding the business, right? Of course, there are other criterias. This is just, again, general framework, but just to let you know, there are other criterias that would apply. But in your case, you would say, okay, of course, you use it for business. If you don't use it for business, then there are issues that may likely arise, right? Because again, it's a loan, right? The beauty of this loan guarantee program is run by the state, although not just by the state. States, of course, we're going to look at the lenders, but it's just to say that this is available. I know so many businesses are going through a lot, even before the inflation, before interest rate hikes. It was a struggle. Small and medium-sized enterprises, they struggle because of capital, right? So many people struggle. I mean, most people that go into business, they have this passion. I want to go into business. Some of them start in their basement. Some people start in the garage. They just want to do it. They have that passion. And sometimes when they start getting successful, I mean, even before they start getting orders, when I say success, it means a lot of orders, fulfilling in orders. They need bit money to start off that business. They want to get some kind of money so that it can really go get out there, right? Because your business must be known, right, for people to buy from you. Okay, so I know that capital is an issue, right? So that's even before the interest hikes, right? Interest hikes with inflation and everything. But now that we're in it right now, the inflation issues and the interest hikes, your people are scrambling. Where am I going to get funding from? Where am I going to get funding from? And that's why I actually spoke about it last week. But this week, I just decided to, again, expand on this area. All right. Again, the beauty of this area, this kind of loan is that, when the government guarantees a part of it, right, people say, you know what, I can lend. I can lend. Of course, there's criteria, but it gives the lenders some kind of comfort, right? Okay, so then you might say, what about the terms? Who negotiates the terms of the loan? Now, we have interest, repayment, all those good stuff. Usually, remember that there's a lender, even though the state is a state's credit line, but it goes through a lender. Usually, the lender would go through, really look at well, lenders usually set up the criteria, but not always. Sometimes it happens like that. Sometimes the state says, okay, you know what? These are the criteria I want you I want the borrowers to meet before I can lend, or before the lender, releases money to them. Criteria, the interest rate, sometimes collateral is involved, all kinds of stuff, right? Because even though the state government has a sort of guarantee on a portion of that loan, a portion comes from the bank or the lender. So usually, even if, okay, the lender and some states will say, okay, lender and borrower, don't worry about it. We will set the criteria. The state will actually look out for also the lender, right? Because they won't put criteria that will not allow the lender to receive or collect money, get their money and interest back. And also, they will make sure that the conditions are not so stringent so that the borrower will not be able to borrow, right? And that's why a lot of times the state, right? Of course, remember credit, this is actually State Small Business Credit Initiative. So usually the state actually is part of everything. So usually, but sometimes some states will say, you know what, I give you free hand, okay? So this is the beauty of this program. Okay. Now, remember, when I talk about term, we talk about interest, we talk about repayment, all those good stuff. Now, another question would be, why is this such a beautiful program? And I'm sure you have already answered the question for yourself from what I just said. It's a beautiful program, right? Now, because right now, as I said, interest rates are high, and lenders might say, you know what, because of the interest rates, I too might give a markup, right? But with the backing of the state government, right, it doesn't work like that, right? They will say it actually works to the advantage of the small business owner. And I want to stress here that it's actually a small business incentive. Remember, what is the criteria? If you have, if you do not meet the criteria, of course, as I said, there's criteria, stringent criteria, but usually it's the criteria is met if you're a small business owner. All right. And so it's very important for you to know that. Okay. The next question is, or you might ask yourself is, okay, who do I get this? Where do I get this money? where is this available? Do I go and walk up to the state government to get this? And my question is, my answer, today is Tuesday. Okay, it's not yet weekend, so hopefully I'm not getting so excited that thinking that this is a Friday. Anyway, let me correct myself. I said, what kind of, okay, so my question is, or the question you might ask yourself is, where can I get this money from? Okay, so it's very important for you to work with a professional, and be very careful when I say professional. I'm not saying that you should wait for somebody calling you and say, they're giving you some, selling you something on the phone. I'm not talking about telemarketing. No, I'm talking about walking into the bank, or working or talking to your CPA. Again, I'm not sure which state offers this. I'm not sure, but your bank would definitely know which state offers it. Okay, so it's very important for you to understand, okay, which state again offers it. Now you might ask, but how about if you have many entities, in different states? Well, I cannot respond to that. Again, there are criteria. Sometimes sometimes the criteria is charged is criteria is specific. When I say criterion, but the specific, it says, it might say that it has to be a one EIN. It could be, but remember, states have the jurisdiction and say, although of course there are some issues, or there's some things that is specifically stated that this is not allowed, is allowed, right? Because remember, this funding is not really coming directly from the state. The federal government funds this. The federal government actually funds through the state. All right. So you might say, okay, but I have locations, I'm a small business, but I have 2 or 3 I have clients that are small businesses, but they are located in more than one state. So if you're like that, you should really approach the bank and say, okay, are you part of this? Are you part of this small business credit initiative? It is the state's part of it, and of course, lender, is the bank part of it too? So it's very important for you to even ask, is the bank part of it? Because some banks are not participating, right? So ask if your bank is part of it. And then, of course, ask questions about, okay, I have my companies, I have 2 companies, right? 2 companies under the same EIN, but they're located 2 branches in different states, right? So it's very, very, very important that you are transparent, because remember, this state might not know what the other state is doing. So it's very important for you to, this might state A has it, the state where my company is located has this. But is it possible, or since your state also has it, how do we work together? Is it doable? Am I supposed to get it in 2 states, or is it specific to this state? So it depends. And I also know that usually, that's what I'm saying usually, most times, some funding is usually tied to an EIN, usually. So it's not tied to an SSN, Social Security number. Why do I say that? Some individuals have more than one company, right? Some individuals have more than one company. I have other companies. So usually, it's not tied to my social security number. Anything to do with my businesses tied to the different businesses. So if you have an entity, one entity, right, that has different branches, that's different. But if you have an entity that has more than one branch in different places, you have more than one branch, or more than, okay, if you have one entity, let me go back and say that again. If you have one entity with different branches, right, but it has one EIN, that is different. It's one entity. But if you have different entities, maybe you have an entity that does something specific, right? Have one entity that does, um, you know, um, consulting, another entity that does design. Could be, and there are two different entities, right? And there are some that might be located in two different states. Now, that is it. That would definitely apply differently, right? So usually, as I said, is basically based on the EIN, not social security number, unless, right, the specifics, by the state or the federal government has some kind of additional condition, right? And that's why when I say this is only, as I said, for educative purposes only. So it's very important for you to look and make sure that look and see how it works in your state. Your state might not have it, that's fine. But if your state does have it, I would suggest that you really look into these options, because with this, lenders they're more open to lend, right? They're more open to lend. And sometimes, just to add to this, sometimes when you're looking for a loan, right? Even under this state small business credit initiative, sometimes your credit might not be good. It could be that, because when you're a small business, especially a startup, right? A lot of times you don't have financial statements from the past for banks to rely on. They might, especially startups. So what they do is they rely on the financials of the owners, right? Of the owner, right? Or the owners, right? So if there's issue with credit fixing, I would suggest that you give yourself some time and, fix your credit. Talk to your bank and say, okay, your bank might say, well, this is available for you right now, but unfortunately, we cannot give it to you because your credit is a particular number. Then you talk to your bank and say, okay, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? I mean, would you give me if my credit goes off 50 marks or 50 points, 50 points? So if that's the case, what you need to do is start working on your credit. Just give yourself, okay, 5 months, 6 months to start working on it. Okay. So again, there are so many, this is just one of them. And I don't want to really go deep and explain and tell you what the bank's responsibilities are, because that's not your issue. But the issue, I would say, is that you have to make sure that you meet not only the criteria to pick up the loan, but also to make sure that you meet what is required to not have issues, right, with the loan. All right. I mentioned use the loan for working capital, use the loan for inventory, whatever you want to use the loan for, let it be business related. All right. So you have to make sure that that happens. Okay. Make sure that that happens. Right. And again, this is just one of the avenues to get funding with a high interest rate, get funding during high interest hikes, during interest hikes. I wouldn't say this is not a high interest rate point way, but during this time that we're looking at inflation, we're looking at interest rates going up, right? And right, we don't know when it's going to come down. We don't know. Hopefully something will happen, but we're just having a listening ear to see what's happening. And I will always suggest make sure you work with a professional. As I said, I'm always here, but or my team were always here, but um, it's good for you to, if you don't have a CPA or CPA firm working that you're working with, of course, we're open to work with you. But if you do have one, please align yourself with your CPA, not during the tax season, because there are so many incentives out there that actually are actually available for you, that your professional or your CPA, your tax accountants would know. I would just say, I would say CPA, another professional that works with people throughout the year, not just during tax time, right? A lot of people work with people, professionals that just say, okay, I want to come and do your tax return. That is not what I'm talking about here. To thrive, you have to work with an accountant throughout the year. And of course, even though you can't hire somebody on staff, you can outsource, making sure that, when there are changes, in the tax law, when there are incentives, because it's not only compliance. We're very, very quick to only look at compliance. Yes, compliance is excellent. We have to be compliant, but there's something else. There are some benefits out there that if you don't work with a professional, you wouldn't know that those benefits exist. Because the goal for you is to get into business and do well, right? That's what you want to do, and that's what you should be doing. And I don't think you want to spend hours to try to understand how tax law works, how credits work, how your financial statement should work, right? I mean, it's good to have a basic knowledge and understanding of that, but you don't want to do all the workings and getting all the stuff, because it's difficult when you don't know it, right? So it's good to work with a professional. All right. So I really hope that I've been able to explain this business, um, state small business credit initiative. I know it's a long one, but I just felt that it's important for me to explain it, because a lot of us don't know that it exists. And check with your state. When I say check with your state, check with your bank, not your bank. The state your business is in. So checking your bank state, check with your financial institution, right? If they're part of this, right? And if they're not part of it, I would say ask your accountant and say, okay, is this state part of this state small business initiative, credit initiative? And you say yes, then you find out how do you get funding, because it might not be your bank. Some small banks might not actually be part of it. But it's very important for you to ask, how do you get funding? How do you take advantage of this? And also, before I just conclude this section, a lot of times there might be collateral required. Okay. So again, it depends. It depends on the lender. And of course, it depends on if the state is involved with the state involved with the terms of the loan. All right. Okay, very important. Okay, moving on. We have a couple of questions and I'm very excited. Okay, the very first question is blogging necessary to build my brand? Sorry, is blogging necessary to build my brand? Okay, I know I spoke about brand, how to get your brand out there. We know that if you don't have your brand out there, if there's no brand awareness, right? If you don't have your brand out there, what happens is that people don't know you, right? You can't be selling something and people don't know that you're selling or have this, you're selling something, right? Either a service or a product. You have to get it out there. Now, blogging is one way. Social is a way of getting interacting with your either customers or potential customers or clients, right? Blogging, people blog and just talk about issues, talk about several things and it could be anything. As an accountant, I might blog and talk about taxation, blog and talk about expenses, anything that will relate to your business. So yes, blogging is good, right? And anyhow you can get your business out is very, very important. I know I talked about brand awareness not too long ago. So blogging is good. It's one of the ways you can get your business out. So yes, blogging is good. So if you have the time, blog well. Don't Don't just play I'm blogging and just getting use blogs to not really define what you want to, your message. Not, just don't use blog just for the sake of blogging. Hope we understand that. Okay? Don't use blog for the sake of blogging. Just make sure that you're ready. You can respond to blogs. You have the time. And so if you don't have the time, if you can't respond to blogs, if you can't, keep up, make changes, I would say just hold on, right, a bit. Get your social media um, um, social media area, or would I say, if it's not you, the person, let them really focus on, blogging and any other social media interaction, because you don't want to blog and then there's an update. Like, for example, there's always an updates, not in all areas, but usually there are updates in taxation all the time. And so I have to be, if I'm blogging, I have to go back and check and update and, and make sure that I'm giving the right information, right? So it's so important that we understand that if you're blogging, it's very important for you to continue to update all the information on the blog, right? Continuously. All right. And if the blog is not really current, you can actually remove it. If you feel that it's better to write a new, write a new, blog, or, if it's too much to update, that's fine. Then take it out, right? So yes, blogging is a way of creating brand awareness. It's a very great way. I believe I will look into doing a show on how the best way to blog effectively. All right. I believe I'll look at doing a show on that, so that if you are even thinking of blogging, right, you should do it well. And you don't have to be like an English major or creative writer to blog. Okay. All right. It's good to be a technical, know your area very well, but you don't have to be creative writer. Anybody can blog. Just make sure you're checking the your spelling and all those stuff to make sure that it's really your sources are actually adequate and correct. All right. So adequate meaning that you're not just having sources that are not aligned with your blog. So make sure. So yes, it's necessary to build your brand through blogging, and any other social media outlet is very good, right? Some people just would be coming back to your blog for more and more information. All right. Okay, awesome. All right. The next question is, my company is growing and I want to hire staff. How do I set wage levels? Okay. This is a very good question, and all the questions are good. But I want to really step back. Remember, if you haven't watched it, I hope you would go and watch the program after this, how to retain your staff, good staff, not even your staff, good staff. A lot of people do not know how to set wage levels. Now, I will repeat this if you have not listened to that show or watched that show. Retaining staff is a cost, right? Because if you lose staff, or would I put it as staff turnover is very expensive. Why do I say that? Some of us don't understand that time spent to look for staff and new staff is time that could have been spent on something more productive, right? You already had a staff that was working with you, but because you didn't treat that staff well, the staff left. So you have to now spend time to look for a new staff. That's money, that's time being spent. You have to do background checks, right? You have to make sure the person is, interview the person. Remember, looking for one is one way, but also interviewing the person is another thing you need to do. All right. You have to make sure that is done. All right. And then another aspect, something else that you need to do with that staff is that you have to make sure that if you eventually hire that staff, you have to make sure the person goes into training. And during the time of training, that person is not usually productive, right? So plus all those all that time, time of looking for staff, putting it out there that you're looking for a new staff, time that you spend in training that staff, background checks, right? All that, that's expensive, right? When you add that time. So great, if you want to hire staff, one of the points I mentioned, I said, how to retain your staff, good staff, not even just staff, good staff, is setting a good wage level, right? What are you going to pay that staff? And I would say that do your market research. Do not underpay your staff. Do not underpay. I would say if you do a market research and here and there, give the person bonuses as as possible. Here and there, I would say as much if you can give the person a bonus as much as possible. I'm not saying that you should not cost those bonuses. Very important because I'm not saying that you should give yourself them bonuses and it's gonna be very expensive. It becomes very expensive to you as a business owner. No, I'm not saying that. First of all, give them a good salary. Then here and there, they do well. Look for ways to compensate them, right? Good salary. I mean, within the market, but high within the market rate. I said that you should do a market like survey. Of course, when you do a market survey, there's low end and there's high end, there's mid, right? Do your best to pay towards the high end. High end. And when I say high end, industry wise, I'm not saying that because you're an SME, you're comparing yourself with someone in your industry that is a Fortune 500 company. That's not what I'm saying. That means you're comparing apples to oranges. No, apples to apples. Someone in your industry, right? A company in your industry, and the person that you're comparing to is looking at the exact, looking at how much they pay somebody in that field that works in your industry, that works even in your states. Because another thing that's when I say apples to apples, you're not comparing someone that, for example, someone in maybe California and you are in, let's say, Texas or Nevada, something like that, because the standard of or the cost of living is very high in California, is very, very high. So you don't want to do a market survey. Let's say you're in Nevada or Texas or maybe in Maine, and you're comparing it with someone that is in California. No, do a very good analysis and then come up with a pay structure that would work. Another thing you could do when you're, of course, have that on the side. And then when you're interviewing, make sure that you are asking the person, how much do you want to be paid? And of course, if the person comes up with an amount that is beyond, the range, you shouldn't hire the person because that person will not stay in your company, right? But if it's within the range, and of course, if your range is really on the market, very good market level, high, very good level, then go ahead and do that. Okay? Do that, hire that person. But first of all, set a wage level that is competitive, right? Good wage level. All right? Very important. All right. So again, I would say that go and listen, please, to how to retain staff, because good staff, because you don't want to spend money because of staff turnover. One of the things I always say that is very important for a small and medium-sized enterprise to thrive. How do you thrive? You thrive by making sure that your cost-effective, cost-efficient, right? You know how to, lower your cost, right? So you might say, oh, I'm not going to pay that new staff extra $10 or $5. But by the time you start looking for another staff, it's going to be too much. It's going to be more expensive than that $5 an hour, right? Retaining good staff is very important. All right. Awesome. Okay. The next question. My business is just starting. Do I need to spend money to register an LLC? Okay, I know I've heard this before, but I'm not going to get tired of answering this question. I know some people might say, oh my goodness, to register an LLC in my state is very expensive. But I want to explain to you the difference between an LLC and a sole proprietorship, because when you're not registering your business, even if it's a DBA, doing business as, you're a sole proprietorship. The difference is that if anything at all happens, right? What happens is that when everything at all happens, your assets, anything like your house, anything at all, is separated from your business if you have it as an LLC. All right. I know that, and I always stress, this is not a platform. I'm not here to give you legal advice or accounting advice, but I just want to make sure you understand that generally, if you have an LLC, it separates you from your, it separates your company from your personal assets. All right. So let's say that, okay, yes, you're a startup, you just started. Let's say, I like using this example as a bakery, let's say you have a bakery and then you have somebody delivering, because you're a startup, you just have some cookies that you want to be delivered. You have a couple of things you want to be delivered, right? Because you have somebody that is driving your delivery truck, right? And you have cookies and you're baking cupcakes and all those good stuff, right? Nice chocolate, good things, right? We all like good chocolate, good things, right? So you're doing that. Now, assuming that vehicle has an accident, and hopefully it will not happen, but let's just say assuming, and the insurance doesn't cover. Let's say it was your driver's fault, the delivery truck's driver, and your insurance doesn't cover the cost of the accident, what the harm that was done to that other person, to the person that was hit. What happens is that they will come at, because you're not an LLC, the plaintiff may say and they sue, let's say they sue, the plaintiff can come after your assets because you're not a limited liability company, all right? LLC. So you don't want that to happen. All right. Limited, like, of course, there are other structures, S Corp, there's C Corp, there are other structures, but I don't want to really go into that because you're asking about an LLC. And it's very important for you to work with a professional too. If you're looking at, but what about an S Corp? What about a C Corp? It's good to work with a professional to really look at what is the difference and how do you go with which, okay? But just know that as an LLC, you're actually separate from your business, right? Yes, you're individually separate from your business. But I also want to stress here that there are specific situations when you're not, right? There are some situations that when it comes to the other structures that, which I'm not going to go into, but it's very important for you to work with your CPA, your professional tax attorney, to set up an LLC. It's good to work with a professional, or C Corp, S Corp, for it. I'm just, just depending on which one works for you. All right. But specifically to this question, yes, you might think that, oh my goodness, why should I spend extra money? Why do I have to spend extra money when it's cheaper for me to just be a sole proprietorship? There's so many negative situations that occur when you are just saying that I'm a sole proprietorship. But again, it's good to talk to, your attorney, your accountant, your CPA, and then they will just walk you through that. All right. So yeah, we have a little more time. So the next question, okay, what kind of business insurance do I need for my small business? Good question. All the questions are good. Now, I would say that talk to your insurance business broker, I believe, or business agent, because there are so many insurances out there for businesses now, right? A lot of people don't know that. I know we have the general insurance and the error and omission insurance, but there are others out there. It's good to be covered very, very well because, for example, recently, I've thought about cybersecurity. It wasn't a very popular insurance addition, but now I would say that it's one of the areas that you should look into, right? Cybersecurity insurance, right? That's why I said that others, there are so many out there. I'm not an insurance agent, but having my own business has actually opened my eyes to make sure that that there are some insurances that you should have. I mean, not everyone, you might not need all, but there are some that specifically I should have. As a professional, I know errors and omission insurance is very important. But again, it just depends on what you do, depends on what is common in your industry. And that's why I continue to encourage everyone, please don't be an island, as I said, I've said, I usually use this. Make sure you're mixing with your your colleagues. When I say colleagues, I'm talking about in your industry. find out, go for meetings, find out what's happening, find out what's going on in your industry. It's very important. All right. All right. So let's see if I have question. Okay, I think that's it for today. We have a little time. Let's see what I can just use to, finish this up. So I know I mentioned this to all of us before, but I will mention it again. Some time ago, I mentioned it. I have a platform where you can actually learn, right? Especially when it comes to the issue of trying to know what structure works best for you. I have a platform that you can actually learn about that. So it's so important for you to look into that. Of course, you still have to work with an attorney or a CPA. The reason why I stress this is because your situation might be peculiar. And I can't advise anybody unless I know all the facts. All right. That's why I always say that this is for informative and educative purposes only. All right. So yeah, that's it for the training that I mentioned, right? There are many. There's even about retirement. There's even, yes, retaining staff. I actually have that too. But there are a couple that is very important or is very good. Well, of course, it's very important and good for you to look into that. All right. So yes. And then as I mentioned before, it's important for you to always look into making sure people know your brand. I've mentioned that, and I know that is so important for us to get out there. So many people are complaining that they're not seeing revenue, but if you sell and people know what you sell, they would actually buy from you. Okay? Very important for us to know that. So, yes, I finished for today, but I also want to stress, and I've said this and I'm continue to say this, you want to thrive, be intentional. Be intentional, right? Be intentional, right? So, as I said, work with a professional, but be intentional because when you're intentional, right, you can do so much, right? I mean, it's not just like hearing what I'm saying today, sitting here. Love having all of you that are listening to me. Beautiful having all of you. But it makes me even happy because I'm always interested in everybody's success. If you listen, watch, and then at the end of the day, right, you put it forward, right? Because it's very important to be intentional. Now, when I say put it forward, I'm just saying that get this information, go to a professional and say, this is what I'm seeing. Is it applicable to me? This is what I watch. Is it applicable to my company? Right? That's what I'm saying when I say make sure you work with a professional. When I'm saying that you should be, when I'm mentioning that you should be intentional. All right. Beautiful having all of you today. And I'll see you next time, of course. And make sure that you're intentional. And I'm hopefully your SME, your small, your medium-sized enterprise, or your small or medium-sized business, right, will thrive. All right. Bye for now. Take care.